do introductions. So we know who we're with together this morning. So first of all, my name is Kevin Harrington. I'm one of the judges, and I lead R&D for home care. Home care is part of the urology and critical care business at Bechdel Dickinson. I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia. My background is in med device product development, and also I've worked in the chemical industry. I went to nuclear power training in the Navy, served on 3 U.S. submarines. My undergrad, I went to University of Rochester, studied chemical engineering. I went to graduate school for material science at Georgia Tech. Okay, so if there are any Georgia fans in the crowd, we'll just settle our differences for the sake of our discussion. Anyway, I'd like the other folks on the call to have a chance to introduce themselves as well. So if you would just kind of, if from the team, if you would just sort of introduce yourself.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, everyone. My name is James. I'm in my 5th year undergrad program, and I'm from Asper School of Business, locating in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, let's say. It's my first time participating in this competition, and I'm so happy to be here.
James, that's awesome. I've never met anyone from Winnipeg. It's a pleasure.
Likewise.
Hi. Or should we let the people of the team on the same team present themselves? Sorry.
Yeah, I can go ahead. I'm from Asper. So good morning, Kevin. My name is Shyam, and I'm a full-time MBA student at the Asper School of Business in Winnipeg. And this will be my final term, so I'm graduating after this.
Very good.
Awesome. So I'm Laura. I'm in my 4th year BCom Asper, specializing in finance. I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Haven't visited Georgia, but I visited a lot of the U.S. states, including California, Florida, a lot of the higher level, a lot of the more northern ones. So nice to meet you.
Very good. Okay. Can the judges introduce themselves?
Sorry, what was that, Kevin?
Sure, Michael. There are several other folks who are with us. I don't know if they're from the Asper team or they may just be observing.
So we are from a different team at the Concordia University team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So the other groups. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me read a brief introduction, and then we'll begin when the team is ready, okay? So this is our 10-minute presentation portion of the competition. You have been called back by the company to whom you gave your full presentation for a second visit. They've asked you to speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and to explain why your solution successfully handles any ethical issues. You will have 10 minutes. There will be no Q&A, and you may not use slides or video. So we're beginning the simulation. If the Asper team can go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Good morning. It's nice to meet you again. My name is James, and I'm here with Laura and Sham from Aspire Consulting. And thank you for inviting us back. Yesterday, we started off with the 1986 Challenger accident as a cautionary tale, emphasizing the real cost of innovation in the last space race, innovation race. It is clear that if management had listened to its engineers' warning, the crisis could have been averted. The shuttle launch could have inspired a future generation in technology and the hope exploration. It is 2021, and Tesla is at the forefront of a new innovation race. With Autopilot, your company have an amazing opportunity to excite consumers and potentially save many people from car injuries. But the paradox is, Tesla Autopilot has the chance to save millions, but it will kill some people first. On one lane, With over 2 million road accidents in the US every year due to human errors, Tesla Autopilot could keep the roads safer by eliminating speeding and impaired and distracted driving. But on the opposite lane, we have to ask, does the end justify the means? The deaths of Walter Wang, a father of two, or of the remaining 14 people who all had faithfully put their life behind the steering wheel and let autopilot take charge of their fate. It is convenient for Tesla to say that Mr. Huang did not pay attention to the road that day, and that his Tesla X had provided multiple warnings. But those who have passed away can't advocate for themselves, and this is unacceptable. As the market leader, Tesla must do more than that to protect their customers. We argue the ethical dilemma that Tesla faces is two-pronged. Firstly, there is the misrepresentation of autonomous features, and secondly, innovation at all costs. This boils down to the fact that Tesla's innovation-centric culture is compromising your business practices. Rather than taking a reactive response to the negative impacts of the ethical dilemma, we want to ensure you are both prepared and proactive regarding these issues. We believe that what makes a company ethical, it's one that fully integrates ethics into their decision-making. So let's dive into the first ethical dilemma.
So misrepresentation exists as the cars are being marketed as self-driving and autonomous vehicles when they're only partially autonomous. For example, your website features a person sitting in the driver's seat without their hands on the wheel. This form of advertising takes advantage of the lack of knowledge that consumers possess and perpetuates misconception. Now, recall that the German transport authorities acted and even sent you a letter asking that you stop advertising Tesla vehicles as self-driving. The misuse of your technology causes accidents, injury, and in the worst case scenario, death. This misrepresentation is only the tip of the iceberg of the issues perpetuated within the company. The second aspect of the ethical dilemma is the concept of innovation at any cost. The current culture at Tesla creates an environment that values innovation over everything else. Now, while Tesla can take pride in its innovation, there's a huge trade-off that manifests in two key ways. First, it creates a high-pressure environment for employees and lowers their morale, leading to burnouts. Two, the product development occurs under very tight deadlines, which forces employees to take shortcuts. And as a result, the product will be compromised and the safety of consumers is jeopardized. The impaired business practices can be seen in the production of your Model 3 electric sedan. Employees are subjected to working in harsh conditions, which affects their performance. An example including a tent for the factory in Fremont, which allowed rain to seep through above the assembly lines. Further, this production was impacted by key steps like water testing, which was skipped, and substandard materials being used. And when Culture 500 spoke with employees of 12 companies in the mobility industry, Tesla ranked first in innovation and second in agility. For other factors such as respect and collaboration, Tesla was on the lower end, ranking 8th and 10th. This current culture, while focused on the two factors of agility and innovation, does not have the other focuses that really build that culture. And this eventually trickles down to the consumers. While they are huge fans of your products, such as the Model 3, they're going to be engaging in and in continuing its misuse. We really want to see your company succeed in the race in company culture as well, to ensure that Tesla's meteoric growth continues. But by violating 3 of the basic consumer rights, including the right to be informed, the right to safety, and the right to education, we see a major risk for continuing to grow and retain your consumer base. The ethical dilemma that your company faces has significant legal and financial impact if left unresolved. When it comes to the legal area, including settlements and compensation for victims, these accidents include high financial costs. In 1978, Ford paid $7 million in punitive damages for a burn victim because of their design flaw in their Pinto model. Now, with inflation, that $7 million is now over $28 million. This potential liability almost doubles to $42 million for fatality, and based on projected car sales, the total potential liabilities for future fatalities would be $1.45 billion. We do not see these issues disappearing until you take direct internal action. The liability that Tesla faces as a company is a result of the culture perpetuated and engaged in by employees and must be addressed in the near future.
We strongly recommend that you drive transformational change internally to become the ethical industry leader. This leadership-driven approach involves accelerating cultural change, shielding users from accidents, and leading industry-wide change. Your company should consider expanding the code of conduct and ethics to include responsibilities toward customers. We also recommend that Tesla adopt additional values such as moving fast to identify future ethical challenges, responsibly innovating, keeping consumers in mind, and reflecting on the impact of innovation on consumers and society. This will drive the message to employees that your leadership is committed to this movement. To mobilize this change, first use town hall meetings and ethics workshops to educate employees on how they should approach their responsibilities going forward, be it procurement, product development, manufacturing, or marketing. Secondly, the company needs to recognize employees from salespeople right up to the top management when they sustain the new values in their actions by celebrating these wins with all internal stakeholders. Imagine celebrating a win because a salesperson took extra effort and time in driving with the customer to guide him about the features. Third, make them champions and responsible to sustain the new values in every part of company's activities and be part of the ethic committee initiatives. Finally, incorporating rewards for employees and management in your company performance reviews shows that the company truly values the efforts that employees put forth. Eliminating the frequent use of self-driving and autopilot by moving towards terminology like co-pilot or assisted driving will ensure that consumers have no misconceptions about the capabilities of Tesla vehicles, which will lead to less accidents and reduced likelihood of lawsuits. One important consequence as a result is that your company will comprehensively educate consumers about the levels of autonomy in their vehicles through marketing channels and through their salespeople. Our plan will propel you to greater heights, ensuring that you innovate with higher employee morale, improved retention, and a stronger customer-centric focus. Improving this internal culture will be more cost efficient than tackling potential financial liabilities through capital issuance or insurance. Beyond eliminating the potential legal and financial liabilities, Tesla must consider this solution because it is simply the right thing to do. Ethics is about doing the right thing when no one is looking.
In conclusion, Tesla innovation-centric culture is compromising your business practices, causing an ethical dilemma. We recommend that Tesla drive transformational change to become the ethical industry leader. As a market leader, it is critical for Tesla to consider the full price of innovation is more than just how many miles autopilot can cover, or even how fast the technology can be updated. Tesla must consider broader implication as it seeks to push the limits. Again, we are confident our proposal has shed light on the price of innovation and that our recommendation will provide a more sustainable solution for the organization and a safer product for our consumers. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Okay, what we're going to do is take a few minutes. I just want to have a chance to capture some notes. Then we'll go on for the next team, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
If you would, for the folks from UPC, if you would just introduce yourselves, and then we'll begin a few minutes thereafter, okay? If you'd like, I can read the summary again. If it's okay, I won't, but otherwise, just let me know.
Well, as you prefer.
Good. You've been called back by the company you gave your full presentation to for a second visit. They've asked you to speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and to explain why your solution successfully handles any ethical issues. You'll have 10 minutes. There will be no Q&A, and you may not use slides or video. So I'd ask the team to introduce themselves and then begin when you're ready.
Sorry for that. It's just that this doesn't work. And I'm Carolina Villegas, and I'm a PhD candidate at Universidad Pontificia Comillas in Madrid. and I'm representing my team in the part of today. So I can start when you tell me.
Carolina, let's go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, members of the board of Endesa, thank you for receiving us here again. You asked us to deepen the ethical aspects of our proposal, and that is what I want to do now in the presentation of all my team at Test Consulting, as the ethical consultant of the firm. We, Test Consulting, propose you what we name a sustainable telework strategy for Endesa. And we want you to make you think, what should be a sustainable telework strategy for us? Because that will be a solution that we need to make together. We intended to show you that your decisions always carry ethical implications. Even in the case of telework, when a company decides on a telework strategy, even if it does so without reflection, as we told you, that decision has specific ethical implications. Well, for us, a sustainable telework strategy for you is one that causes little or no damage to all of your stakeholders and therefore is able to continue for a long time. A sustainable strategy has financial, legal, and ethical implications. We talked about that yesterday, and we will prepare the specific numbers of the financial implication if you let us access to all of your data. And we show you the impact of the legal aspects and the relevance of rights, just as the right to disconnect and to privacy. Now let's talk more about the ethical implications. But first, let me please briefly remind you the problem. Well, as said yesterday, as a consequence of the COVID-19 crisis, millions of workers across Europe and beyond have been required to stay home and work from there. The immediate need for teleworking that companies as you and Endesa have faced in the last year has meant that enterprise, a great test for which you and all the enterprises, many of the enterprises were not prepared in most cases. Getting out of the telework step is a challenge for the company efficiency and economic benefits, we understand. There we talk about ethical considerations and we explain to you how your strategy should take into account the common good, your duties as an employer and as a member of a community, your employees' rights, and the justice implications. And above all, we want you to think in care as an essential way to develop a sustainable solutions for your current challenge. Well, let's talk about the ethical implications again. What about the common good? Here we think that Endesa and enterprises, when developing their telework strategy, should always think in the common good. At Endesa, you should think in all of your stakeholders when developing your strategy: government, shareholders, suppliers, especially employees and their families, communities, society as a whole, and environment. We talk about duties. Then we said that Endesa should work on a strategy to avoid harm and to promote the well-being of all your employees. Harm should be avoided in the physical and psychological aspects. We now know how human body can be affected by sedentarism, and for maintaining certain posture inappropriate for the human body, we told you. Also, we now know too how loneliness and lack of social relationships can affect human development and psychological well-being. And there we make you think that not only gender injustice or duties are in the play, but other many importance too. Well, then we talk about rights, and this strategy should also be developing, taking into account all employees' rights. For instance, the right to privacy of their data, to freedom or choice to telework or not, and to a free time, the right to disconnect, we told you. During the pandemic in Spain, many employees complained that working hours were extended. Employers assumed that if we were all always at home and with an internet connection, necessarily we will always be available to answer emails, calls, or requests. But then we talk about justice. And all of you members of the board and Endesa, we told you, you must ensure that your telecommunity strategy is fair to all your employees and does not unfairly discriminate. For instance, based on socioeconomic status, we told you, and about gender or certain circumstances as having dependence. You should ask yourself, do all my employees have the same economic possibility to telework? And you must also ensure too that your strategy is fair in terms of gender and parenthood. You should ask yourself, is it better or worse for a father or mother to telework? each case will be different, we told you. There are parents who prefer to telework to have a suitable place without noise, looking for hours without distraction. But for others parents, telework may be the only possibility. Think when homework is mandatory for your kids, and there is no other option to take care of your child. The company response must avoid injustice and tend toward egalitarianism. It will be unfair if telework is taken as something negative when the time of promotions or bonuses arrives. Above all, our main concern is that Endesa should act with care, where this means that the telework strategy of the enterprise should take into account or be open to the possibility to take into account each employee's circumstance, context, and vulnerability. But there your strategy should avoid a negative impact of the most marginalized stakeholder, just like gender impact and greenhouse gases impact on our planet. And this telework strategy must also follow the Spanish legislation, being a Spanish company, while favoring a positive impact on the economy and with the company, with the reduction of the infrastructure, better use of job places, and less absenteeism. The best thing will be to bet on a hybrid and flexible modality. 30% of the working day should be teleworking, at least, but you must always take into account the particularity of each employee. There are many vulnerabilities to take into account. The legal aspect to take into account for a suitable management of telework are self-regulation, training, and transparency, and that have ethical implications. Your telework strategy should keep working on his map of a stakeholder, always working on this, and keep always thinking who can be affected by the implementation of it. Then you should avoid harm, physical and psychological, we told you, and provide the necessary equipment to avoid physical pain or any kind of physical harm, and to promote social relationships with team building activity or the same kind of events. Also, Endesa should work actively to avoid the psychological damage that telework could bring to employees. Think about burnout. That psychological help or constant satisfaction survey may be a possibility. You should open your mind and think that not only gender and care of a child is a problem, there are many problems to take into account, again, I say. Even though this plan should be flexible, things must be settled, like free hour hours or certain limits in line with employee or employer's necessities to respect the rights of every employee. Also, this plan must ensure fairness and equal treatment for all employees, regardless of circumstances that involve injustice and discriminatory treatment. And also fairness should come in the way of establishing KPIs to promote fairness, so telework should not affect promotion as bonus, as we said. All this to say again that context, circumstances, and vulnerability of each employee are the key to a sustainable telework strategy for you at Endesa and for every ethical company. We now see that we cannot give you the exact solution. We need to work together on this, you and on test consulting. We propose you a flexible solution, and after a meeting yesterday, we believe that you should work on teleworking labor agreements. Managers must be aware of this agreement and work on it with the Human Resource Department. Here, transparency is a key. And there we want to work with you to create the best solutions for the well-being of all of you and your employees, and to respect the rights, your duties, and one that is fair that all of your stakeholders. Thank you so much for your time again.
Carolina, thank you. Okay, again, let's take just a few moments. I want to have a chance to take a few notes, and we'll come back in a moment. Thank you. Michael, how are things?
We're good.
Okay, very good. Okay, I appreciate the third team is from Concordia. If the team would just briefly introduce themselves, I can read the summary again, but I can skip it if you're okay. Which do you prefer?
We can skip it.
Very good. Okay.
Sounds good.
So if you would just each introduce yourselves and then begin when you're ready.
Go ahead, Arya.
Hi everyone. Good morning. My name is Arya Roy, and my teammate and I are representing John Molson School of Business from Concordia University today, and we're happy to be here. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Hirok Chakraborty from John Molson School of Business, Concordia University in Montreal, and I'm a final year MBA student. I look forward to presenting today.
Good. Okay, Concordia team, go ahead when you're ready.
Sure. Good morning, members of the board of directors of Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft. For generations, working women across the globe have been held back from progress by a glass ceiling at every stage of their career. Today, we introduce the COVID ceiling, which has put you at a critical crossroad that can impact your future for generations to come. We are Carpe Diem Consulting, and we thank you for the opportunity to re-emphasize our solution. Members of the board, we are at the epicenter of the COVID-19 global crisis that threatens all facets of our society. The impact of COVID-19 has been felt particularly strongly in global employment, with 114 million jobs lost. The crisis is worse than the financial meltdown of 2008-9. This has impacted women disproportionately, with 2.4 million women leaving the workforce, bringing the total number down to the lowest in 33 years. Gender inequality is particularly stark in US big tech. Women of color are facing severe bias. Working mothers are being forced to drop out of the workforce due to childcare responsibilities. And the appointment of women to leadership positions is dropping dramatically. In 2018, it was estimated that it would take 202 years to close the gender gap. The World Economic Forum states that the COVID-19 has added 50 years to this number. Failure to address the impact of COVID-19 on women can result in an opportunity loss of over 13 trillion globally. This brings us to our mandate. How can US big tech combat the regressive effects of COVID-19 on women and ensure greater organizational representation and retention? The key issues can be divided into two categories. What we see on the surface is declining tech labor force participation, leadership representation, and declining equitable pay. What we do not see due to COVID-19 is poor job support, lack of allyship, limited career advancement, and unconscious bias. Therein lies the ethical breach that needs to be addressed immediately. To overcome this ethical challenge, we recommend the following. Increase organizational support for women during COVID-19 by providing greater job flexibility for working mothers, increased allyship for women of color, and building a leadership support network for women leaders. But before we dive deeper into our recommendation, let us dive deeper into the ethical aspect.
Now, evaluating this issue through an ethical lens, we see that big tech firms are well known for their generous compensation and benefits packages. In fact, all the players that we evaluated today offer comparable parental leave, childcare coverage, and women empowerment programs. However, GAFM has been receiving a lot of negative press over the past couple of years for their failed diversity initiatives. And we believe that a failure of these initiatives can be attributed to a misalignment with respect to their formulation, execution, and evaluation. Most of your programs are generic in nature and follows a one-size-fits-all approach. There is also limited to almost no reporting of the outcomes of your initiatives, and not having them tied to your top management's goals doesn't help either. Firms also need to go beyond diversity to ensure inclusion, which is currently not the case. Now, coming to the ethical implications at hand. From our analysis, we've identified 3 key personas who have been the most impacted over the past year and who require GAFM's immediate attention. Firstly, we'll be looking at Firoza, a woman of color at Google. We'll then be looking at Emma, a working mother at Amazon. And lastly, we'll be looking at Charlotte, a woman leader at Facebook. The framework we've used in addressing the ethical challenges faced by each of these personas is firstly determining who is impacted and understanding what they deserve, which we will then compare with what they receive in reality. We believe this framework of contrasting what one deserves to what they receive does an excellent job of explaining what is fair and what needs to be done to address the unethical treatment of women in US big tech today. Now, starting with Firoza, a woman of color. She requires a culture that promotes allyship and is interested in furthering racial parity. She also requires a firm that is deeply invested in her career advancement. However, she is on the receiving end of a lot of microaggressions and unconscious bias from both her peers and her management, which results in her career drastically stagnating. So as a result of the racial bias she faces, there's severe job dissatisfaction and she's forced to exit the workforce. Now moving on to Emma, a working mother. Mothers like Emma require a work culture that is empathetic towards her unique needs. She also requires the financial resources needed to support her and her child and a flexible working environment. However, what she does receive is a lot of negative perception from her colleagues, especially about her work and her productivity when she chooses to avail a flexible benefit that is offered by a firm. A lack of timely and affordable daycare services means that she has to accept a reduction in her working hours, which means that she's forced to accept significant pay cuts. And as a result, Emma is forced to exit the workforce, thereby further widening the existing gender gap in big tech. Lastly, we'll be looking at Charlotte, a woman leader. Women leaders require higher representation at their level to help them build a strong network of like-minded peers. They also require consistent training and development opportunities to help them effectively function as a leader, and they need an open, unbiased, and inclusive culture that promotes their growth. However, Charlotte is constantly suffering from mental and emotional struggles due to a gender imbalance at the top, which translates to poor job support because of the stereotypes that she's constantly subjected to. Hence, the burnout and disproportionate pressure she faces will force her to exit the workforce. Therefore, our ethical framework reveals that how these groups of women are treated in your firm is impacting a significant portion of your workforce. It's also creating an unfair and inequitable gap between the genders in your firm. These serious ethical lapses reveal a highly biased system that is rooted in injustice towards women, a system that needs to be addressed immediately. In conclusion, we are forced to take a hard look at the ethical factors at play here. GAFM is far from achieving equity or even reducing the gender gap. So the core ethical question at hand today is, has COVID-19 created a glass ceiling for women? The answer to which, unfortunately, is a definite yes.
At this point, let us revisit our recommendation. Increase organizational support for women during COVID-19 through greater job flexibility, increased allyship, and an enhanced leadership support network. For working mothers, we recommend the creation of a motherhood empowerment network. This would involve the creation of an efficient feedback mechanism to identify gaps in current initiatives and support services such as daycare services, partnerships, and a childcare information bank. This would result in improved job support and therefore reduce turnover. For women of color, we recommend the creation of an allyship framework, including intersectional employee resource groups aimed at empowering women of color to listen, unite, and act. This would further be supplemented by organization-wide allyship training across the year and at every level. This would not only boost overall retention rate, but also foster a long-term empathetic company culture. For women in leadership, we recommend the creation of a support network that would involve monthly highlights of female leaders, customized leadership training at every level, and regular access to weekly mental health sessions. This would result in increased job motivation, work-life balance, and emphasize your organization's commitment to gender equality at every level. The United Nations states that the COVID-19 crisis could set back a generation of women. The percentage of working mothers, women of color, and women leaders continue to decline as the COVID ceiling threatens to alienate women in the workforce even after the pandemic subsides. It is no longer enough to simply comply to requirements. It is time to do what is equitable, inclusive, and what is right. Your actions and your choices today will shape tomorrow's future for women in the workforce. Through our recommendations of increased job flexibility, allyship, and a leadership support network, we firmly believe that you can act as the flag bearers for the advancement of women and transform their futures for the better for decades to come. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, folks, that's all we have for the session. So we'll go ahead and close the session out now.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kevin. Thank you.
Take
everyone.
care, everyone.
Thank you.